Hello, I'm Sandy Arnett. On this edition of Commuter Connections, we'll talk about pedestrian and automobile safety around trains. We'll tell you about Metro subway improvements ahead, which will affect your commute, and discuss a number of public hearings being held on the BMP Tunnel project. All right here. Welcome to Commuter Connections. Each and every year, a number of avoidable pedestrian and automobile accidents involving trains occurs along railways in our region. MTA, which operates Metro subway, light rail, and MARC train, takes rail safety seriously and is working to educate the public on how to remain safe around trains. MTA Director of Safety, Bernadette Bridges, joins us to talk rail safety. Welcome to Commuter Connections.
Thank you, Sandy.
So tell me, what is the mission of MTA's Office of Safety?
Our mission is to ensure that our customers, our employees, our facilities, our right-of-way, and our operating environment is safe for use for the public as well as our employees and anybody that we interact with, whether it's other state agencies or communities. So that's our mission, to ensure that our environment, our people, our customers, our employees, our facilities, and equipment is safe.
What advice would you give pedestrians as far as it comes to rail safety?
Our advice is always to prepare for your trip, to be on time so that you won't have to rush or run for a train or run for the service that you see. Be mindful of the gap, stand away. There's a marking, delineation marking that's yellow that passengers can stand behind and wait for the train. So we always want them to just be safe, be early, and just mind the rules of the railroad that they see. We have brochures available to the public to tell them how to use our service safely.
Okay. Now you mentioned rail. So what rail service modes is your division responsible for?
We are responsible for the safety of our MARC train service as an oversight agency because it's operated by a third-party provider. And then we have our our light rail trains and our Metro trains as well. Okay. So we're responsible for that safety. We have safety officers who are responsible for those modes. They're assigned directly to those modes.
Oh, okay. So what would you say is the greatest misconception that people have about the rails?
I think the greatest misconception that people have is that trains don't move fast. Trains are very quiet these days. Old locomotives and train cars many years ago were loud and you could hear them coming. The newer train models are very quiet, and the misconception is that they move slow, and they really don't. They think that they can make it across the grade crossings or across the tracks by walking, but it takes a train traveling maybe 70 miles an hour. It would take that train about 1.5 miles to stop. So trains,
So it's not like they can just stop on a dime.
No, they can't.
Mm-hmm. So how fast would you say, like the light rail service, how fast do those trains travel?
Light rail trains travel about the most speed they travel miles per hour is about 50 miles an hour on the light rail system. And then our Metro trains, they can travel more, but we have marked speeds, reduced speeds based on our operating environment. Our Metro trains, about 60 miles an hour they can go. And our MARC trains can go up to 125 miles an hour, but we don't go over 110 miles an hour with the MARC trains.
Oh, okay. So I know, like on, just say, the light rail tracks, oftentimes I know you have people trying to run across quickly, or trains that sometimes, not trains, cars that actually sometimes get stuck on the tracks. So what advice can you give to people when it comes to things like that?
I think that on the Howard Street corridor, some of the, with car traffic, vehicular traffic, and trains running in the same right of way, it's very challenging for us because cars come from out of town. A lot of times they're not familiar with the Howard Street corridor. But I would just say to people who are going to be traveling that route that they would make sure that they know that trains do run up and down Howard Street, and to obey the traffic signals, but also look for the signage that is there that tells them not to enter the track area. on Howard Street. And those are some of the challenges we face. People are coming from out of town and they're not really looking. They see a train track and they just kind of get a little shaky and they wind up in the track area. And that's been a challenge for us. But we're working with the city to try to paint again and do some delineation markings to ensure that, we can minimize some of those incidents happening.
Mm-hmm. So there's plenty of signage, though. You make sure that people are aware to stay off the tracks. What causes a car to get stuck on the tracks, though? Because I know there have been a couple of instances where that has occurred. Is it just the way the track is designed and the tire gets caught, or what happens exactly there?
What happens, the roadway, the track, it has like deep gauges in it. The track is just made different. It's that has ballast in the track, and it has raised track, and then we have rumble strips to let people know that they're going into the track. But what happens is they panic and they get too far and they go right into the track bed, and their cars are too low to move, and so they they get wedged to the rail, and then they have to be towed out. Because if they go in too far, it's hard for them to actually get out. So they have to be towed out, and that's what happens. People panic and they continue to go, and they're right all the way into the track bed.
Right. Now, how often do you have occurrences? I would imagine with light rail, because it's above ground and people are trying to run across the tracks, you have instances that happen there. But with Metro, subway, underground, or even with MARC, how often do you have occurrences where, cars or pedestrians are on the tracks?
We don't have a lot with our Metro system. We only have one crossing, which is really not it's not assessed by the public, so we don't really accessible to the public, so we don't really have any problems with that. Most of our issues on our Metro are people either if they fall into the track or elevator and escalator incidents. Those are some of the things that the incidences that we have on Metro. Not any instances for cars or vehicles in the track area. And MARC train would be at grade crossings or trespassers who are on our right-of-way.
Okay. Yeah, because I know especially, I guess, with MARC, sometimes people may just be strolling along the tracks. And like you said, you don't hear, before you know it, I guess a train could be right behind you. So usually it's encouraged not to stroll, not to play, not to linger in any way around the tracks.
I think the first thing that our parents always tell us is don't play on the railroad tracks.
Yes.
I mean, that's something that people should be mindful of. The tracks are not a safe place. They're made for trains. They're not made for people to walk on. So we just encourage people not to be trespassers on the train tracks. Never walk on the train track. Train time is any time. You never know when a train is coming, and they have high speeds.
And if anyone has questions, is there a number or website that they can contact?
They can actually go right to the MTA website. There's our safety tips that are published for all of our service that we provide at MTA. Okay. Or they can call 410-539-5000 and it can be transferred if they have additional questions.
Okay, and that website is mta.maryland.gov, correct?
Yes.
Okay, thank you again. Last month, MTA held a ribbon-cutting ceremony launch for its new radio station, WTTZ, the Maryland Transportation Channel. MTA Commuter Connections was there.
Last month, the Maryland Transit Administration invited media, guests, and employees to celebrate the official launch of its new radio station, WTTZ 93.5, which is being branded as the station that moves you.
WTTZ LP Baltimore, WMVK LP Perryville, and MTA Transit Team Network station.
This new radio station is the first newly licensed radio station in Baltimore in nearly 30 years. MTA Manager of Broadcast Operations, Mark Jones, details the accomplishment.
We have a station in Perryville at 107.3, and that's been serving us well in the Hartford County, Cecil County area. And when the opportunity presented itself for us to have a station in Baltimore, where our core customer base is, we had to move on that and make that happen. So it was a process of finding out what frequencies were available here in Baltimore.
The station is one of the first of its kind, with a format that provides complete and frequent transit, traffic, and airport updates.
We're the only station in the marketplace providing regular rush hour transit reports where we can give details about what's happening with our transit routes, highway traffic conditions, we also have that. And we're also the only station giving BWI airport updates on any delays on flights. And so we're providing this kind of first in the marketplace format, uniquely positions us as the only radio station to give a complete picture about what's happening on the rails, on the roads, and in the air. Very exciting.
The station will be operating 24/7 while providing drive time traffic updates, weekday mornings from 5 until 9 and weekday afternoons 2 to 6. Also, listeners will be able to enjoy smooth instrumental music.
Our presentation is very attractive to the folks who listen to radio because we're providing transit information, transportation information, but in addition to that, a nice blend of music, instrumental music with vocals blended with it. And I think it's something that listeners will enjoy.
Now, coming up next, a look at an upcoming rail safety improvement project that's expected to affect your travels on Metro Subway. That's next. Stay with us. There's a major improvement project ahead for Metro Subway's interlocking system that's expected to affect service when construction begins. I recently visited an area of Metro Rail's right-of-way for a look at one of the locations slated for these improvements. I'm here at the portal area of Metro service in Northwest Baltimore with MTA Director of Metro Operations, Fletcher Hamilton. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
What exactly is the Metro interlocking system and why is that work necessary?
Okay, well, interlockings are areas within the system that allow us to cross trains over from one track to the other. They're strategically located throughout the system. We have 3 main crossovers out here that we're anticipating replacing during this project.
What areas along the Metro subway system will require the interlocking upgrades?
Well, we'll be right here at the portal interlocking. We'll be at Rogers Avenue interlocking, which is just west of here, and then Reisterstown Plaza interlocking, which is the westernmost point that we'll be working in.
Okay. So now how old is the Baltimore Metro subway system?
Well, the Metro subway system opened in 1983, so it's 33 years old, and it's basically these key areas are getting to the end of their useful life cycle.
So tell me, I know we're here at the portal area. With the work that's going to be done on the interlocking, what will it mean for our transit riders?
Well,
can you describe, like, what is the work that will actually take place?
Yeah, well, actually the contractor's going to come in, they're going to disassemble the whole track system, remove all the entire signaling, cabling, and then all the switch components, and then they're going to excavate it out, dig it down about 6 to 8 feet, put a whole new subgrade in, and then build the structure back up from the bottom up. And that's going to entail laying the new subgrade, compacting it, putting a ballast section down, then laying all new track work, which is going to be concrete instead of the wooden ties. And then we're going to have all new steel, all new switches, and all new crossovers.
Oh, okay. So now, is this something that's done once a year, every 5 years? How often is this kind of work normally done?
Well, usually it's about 30-year mark, 35-year mark. So we're hitting it pretty much on target. As far as an extensive, rebuild like we're doing in this case.
Okay. Okay. Now, as far as the actual interlocking work, when do you expect that? When is it slated to begin, and how long will it be before it's completely done?
Okay. Well, we're going to actually shut down the system between Mondawmin and Milford Mill and work on these 3 interlockings beginning July 23rd, and then opening back up on August 12th.
Okay. Now, why did you choose to do sort of a, this type of shutdown or a partial shutdown versus the single tracking?
Well, our engineering department did a study to see what would be most feasible, best for the agency in terms of time and dollars.
Yes.
And it was determined that a total shutdown would be more beneficial for both the customers and for MTA. It will approximately take about 3 weeks, as stated, so that we could do the entire project all at one time, inconvenience our customers for that little short period of time, and then open back up with a brand new system.
Oh, okay. And I guess it's good too, because when you think July, school is out, a lot of people may be on vacation, so you may not have as many people traveling on the system.
Exactly.
Correct?
If we did a single track, we'd have to single track like 2 segments of track, and it would pretty much be impossible to do and keep any kind of schedule.
How and when will the transit riders be informed of the Metro interlocking work, and what tips might customers be given?
Our customer services department has already begun some outreach, just in general, because we don't have all the details of the project at this time. The Metro personnel will be doing some on-site station, outreach with the public at all the stations affected, from Milford Mill down to Mondawmin.
Okay.
And we'll begin that in June. And then as we get closer, and we have more details on the supplemental service, which will be the bus support that we have, we'll get that message out to the people.
Okay. Now, roughly, I'm not sure if you can tell us this, roughly how many customers, how many transit riders might this impact?
Well, we normally haul around 48,000 daily customers on a weekday. So I would imagine that the number will drop somewhat because people will find other means to get back and forth to work or wherever their travel takes them. And then, so I would estimate probably somewhere between 30 and 40,000 it's probably going to affect on a weekday.
Okay. So what tip would you give transit riders, in anticipation of the work that's coming?
Well, I would do my best to find alternative means.
Okay.
But the MTA will be there to support it. It may be a little inconvenient, but we'll do the best we can.
Okay, sounds good. Well, thank you again.
Okay, thank you.
That's a very important improvement project for Metro, which we'll provide an update on here on a future program. Again, thanks to Fletcher Hamilton for an on-site glance at that project. Just ahead, a look at a number of upcoming public hearings that are being scheduled to discuss Maryland's B&P Tunnel project. Stay with us. The Federal Railroad Administration, Maryland Department of Transportation, and Amtrak are advancing engineering and environmental studies that examine a number of improvement alternatives for the aging B&P tunnel, which has been in use since the 1800s. A number of community workshops have been scheduled to update the public on the tunnel project. I recently met with B&P Tunnel Project Manager Jacqueline Thorne at Baltimore's Penn Station for a look at this project and upcoming public meetings. Jacqueline, thanks for joining us here at Baltimore Penn Station. Now tell me, what exactly is the Baltimore and Potomac, or the B&P Tunnel Project?
Thank you for having me, Sandy. The B&P Tunnel Project is a federally funded study. It's evaluating a new alternative to the existing tunnel, which is a two-track tunnel. We're evaluating environmental impacts as well as a preliminary design build.
What is the tunnel used for now, and roughly how many trains pass through a day?
The tunnel is being used for passenger rail, stemming from Boston through DC by Amtrak, MARC, and we do have 2 off-peak freight trains utilized by Norfolk Southern. We have approximately 150 trains traveling per day.
Oh, okay. So why is the work on the tunnel necessary?
The work on the tunnel is necessary because the existing tunnel is 143 years old. It requires a lot of maintenance and upkeep. There's also a bend in the current tunnel that prevents speeds beyond 30 miles per hour. So we're looking to replace that with 2 additional bores for travel so that we can increase speed and capacity.
Oh, okay. So what would you say are the speeds of the trains going through now? I know you said at the bend it slows down, but on average?
Well, on average, along the Northeast Corridor, it's 125 miles per hour on average. Okay. So you can see how if you have to slow to 30 miles per hour as you're approaching or exiting, that would impact the schedule.
Okay. And of course, people want to get to where they need to go on time.
Correct.
So what's the timetable for having this work done and completed?
We've been actively working on this project for over 2.5 years. This completion date for the project will end in mid-2017.
Okay. And you mentioned the environmental studies. So
Correct.
What is the impact of this project on the environment?
We're doing a detailed environmental study. Actually, it's the highest tier of environmental reviews. There would be no impact on the surface, with the exception of where the boring machine or the digging for the new tunnels would start, as well as a mid-tunnel vent shaft that would be obvious infrastructure added.
Okay. And you mentioned this boring machine. That's something pretty big. It's pretty massive.
Correct. It's like a massive drill, a drill bit, if you would, drilling into the core of the earth and pulling out the debris as it goes along.
Okay. Okay. So how many people would you say are currently involved in this project?
We have over 100 people actively working on the project.
Okay.
Yes.
Quite a few.
Yes.
Now, are there any alternatives?
Currently, there are 2 remaining alternatives. We originally had 16 alternatives. And those 2 alternatives are known as 3A and 3B.
And what exactly do they include?
Those alternatives would connect West Baltimore Mark to Penn Station, as the existing tunnel does today. There would be 4 tunnels and 4 bores or 4 tunnels to travel through, as opposed to the 2 we have now.
Now, what would you say are some of the economic benefits to the BMP Tunnel project?
The economic benefits are vast. People travel from Boston to DC daily. Tens of thousands of people travel. In fact, a one-day loss on a recent NEC study would indicate that it would be up to $100 million in economic loss for the area.
Oh, wow. That's significant.
It is.
That's significant. So what has been the community's involvement in all this?
The community contact and involvement has been ongoing. In fact, we've had over 13 different opportunities to meet with the communities. We've had open formats, we've had presentations, community outreach, local organizations. As a matter of fact, we just had 3 public hearings, and we're approaching 2 more opportunities coming up next month.
Oh, okay. So what are the dates and where will those meetings be held?
The first would be on April 6th at Frederick Douglass High School between 5 and 8 p.m. And the second would be on Saturday, April 16th between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. at CARVER Vocational High School.
So can people still comment? Is there a set deadline for the comment period?
For the next set of information we're going to show, we'd ask for if we can have comments by April 30th. But anytime the public can reach us via our website, typical mail, phone call, any comments are always welcome.
Okay, awesome. So can you tell me your website address and or the phone number?
That's www.bptunnel.com. We also have a comment, an electronic comment at info@bptunnel.com.
Okay, great, great. So tell me we'll wrap up. What is the total cost of this project? Because it does sound like it's a massive one. It's going to last a little while, but it's very much needed. And just what would you say the cost would be for this?
Okay, the study budget is $60 million. Okay. Once we reach construction and go through different phases of the project, this would be the first. It's estimated it would cost approximately $4 billion.
Oh, okay. It's pretty significant, but again, very well worth it for the safety, reliability, so everything that it's going to give people that use the system.
Right, for future use as well.
Okay.
For years to come.
Great. Well, thank you again for joining us.
Thank you, Sandy.
That's an important rail project that will certainly impact a number of communities and Northeast Regional Rail service, including MTA MARC train. Updates to follow as that project progresses. We've come to the end of another Commuter Connections program. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. Take care.